The Puck Portfolio with Andy MacNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio. It is Friday, April 5th. The show is presented by CanadaSportsBetting.ca. My name is Andy MacNeil, and I am joined by my usual Friday guest, Nick Martin from the Action Network. Nick, how you doing, man?
Well, I'm doing good, Andy. There's about 2 feet of snow on the ground here on April 5th, but
Really? You guys
yeah,
got more than us. It's melting as soon as it hits the ground here in Edmonton. But I went for a little walk this morning. Got the pup out and got pretty wet doing so. So yeah, no, I feel you. This Alberta weather, get a grip, man.
it's a little draining, but that's okay.
Yeah, maybe it'll get some of those losers off the highways. If you know, you know. um. Anyway, uh, had to go there. Because I've just been scratching my head for the last like 4 days. Every time I look online, like, do you guys have jobs or what? Like, what the hell? um, anyway, we've got a jam-packed weekend of NHL hockey. We've got 6 games on Friday, 11 games on Saturday, 9 games on Sunday. So really making up for the Easter long weekend, which is pretty devoid of any NHL coverage, with just 1 game on Friday and 1 game on Sunday. So yeah, jam-packed weekend. Good weekend to be snowed in here in Alberta. Watch some hockey. Nick, let's start with Friday. Like I said, 6 games on the docket. Big one between the Flyers and the Sabres. The Sabres, they're out of it. They're virtually out of the playoff picture. With I've got them at about a 0.3% chance right now. So basically a 0% chance. The Flyers, they've got about a 56% chance according to my projections. So big game here tonight for Philly. They won't have their captain, Sean Couturier, in the lineup. They will have Ivan Fedotov in goal. He made his NHL debut in relief of Samuel Ersson versus the New York Islanders. Played really well in a brief appearance. He's going to get the start on Friday against the Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo. A lot of pedigree here. I mean, we've seen some goaltenders like Shesterkin, Sorokin, etc., come over from Russia and do really well immediately in the NHL. No signs of any growing pains, kind of transitioning to the North American game. Fedotov a little bit different though, because he's 27 years old. He's a very seasoned KHL goaltender. What do you think of him right now, and what kind of effect do you think it has on this Philadelphia Flyers team? Do you think he gives them a bit of a better look than Ersson is giving them right now?
Yeah, I think it's completely realistic that he actually could do better than Ersson.
Same here.
So it's always tough to like figure out how these guys, and I mean, I guess that's just all goaltending. But I actually do like his upside. He played really well versus the Islanders. It's a pretty cool story. And I think if
Yeah,
you
it
follow,
takes a lot to get Tortorella to compliment you as well,
yeah,
right? Especially if you're a goaltender.
yeah, and like he'd missed a whole year, which I think, if anything, is kind of interesting to me, because it's like, what was upside be if he was fully, if that didn't happen, if he wasn't 1 year away from that. And at times this KHL level has been pretty insane, especially considering some of those years the KHL was supposedly closer to the NHL and talent level compared to what it is now. So I actually think it's pretty realistic that he could do well. And I do actually like the under. There's 6.5 at -132 in this game. I would play that. I think it's not a bad look. The other thing, you can get the Flyer or the Sabres team total to go under 2.5 at around +140. I do think that's a decent look as well. I think if Philly bounces back, that's going to be their avenue in this game. We know the way those practices probably went this way. I do think their defensive upside is legitimately just worse with Walker out of the mix. But with that said, I still look at this versus a Buffalo team that's kind of been maybe in their best run of form offensively of late. I don't hate Philly either, but I kind of respect what the Sabres have done. I feel like if you want to target them, I'd rather kind of target that under. But yeah, those are my looks here. I do think it's obviously a game that's pretty interesting, and I kind of want to bet on Fedotov doing well and the Flyers bouncing back defensively. So yeah, those are my looks on that one.
Yeah, I like Philly here a little bit now that Fedotov is in goal. Obviously, he's a bit of an unknown, but I think that the Sabres, they should be about a -106 favorite here on Friday against Philly. I had Philadelphia as a small favorite before it was announced that Couturier was going to be out. So shifted things a little bit. I know he hasn't been playing that well recently, but still an important part of the team nonetheless. And I like the Flyers here for. I'm just going to see if it meets the threshold here. So at plus 111, which is the current odds at Pinnacle Sports, currently the best price in market. That works out to a 0.46% bet. So not quite a half unit bet. So yeah, it doesn't quite meet the threshold, but I think it's close enough that I'm going to lock in a 0.4 unit bet on the Flyers at plus 111 odds. And you know what? Let's do the under 6 minus 125. I'm going to do that to win a half unit. That price is available at Betway. I think, you look around the market, under 6 is priced at minus what? Where are we
So
at
is
here?
that 6.5 you're saying, Andy? Is
Yeah,
minus 125?
yeah, really
Okay.
great price
Yeah, that
because
is for sure.
under 6 is minus 105 at Pinnacle. There should be about a 25% difference there. If we look at this and we think that Pinnacle is right on with the minus 105 price at under 6, we can look at Betway and say under 6 minus 125 is a better bet than that. So yeah, I'm gonna lock those two bets in quickly. I was kind of waiting for you to tell me if you like the under because I like it too. So going under 6.5 minus 125 to win a half unit, and the Flyers at plus 111. That's a 0.4 unit bet.
Love it.
And this really, just kind of illustrates that bets that you might not find at most sports books. If you have access to a lot of sports books, you can shop around and you can find some better prices, right? So, there are people out there today that are gonna, maybe they bet at one or two sports books, and they're gonna log in and they're gonna lay, you know, minus 114 on under 6 when they could be laying minus 125 on under 6.5. And probably not even know it. So having an overview of the market, being able to look at different sports books, can really help you make some better informed decisions.
Yeah, and this might be a bit of a just like take in my head, but it does feel like in these spots, I love winning on 4-2. I feel like in this game in particular, I'm really happy to get that 6.5 at a decent number, because I think the main way you're going to see that busted is probably a 3-3 tie. So yeah, I do really think that that's a solid bet, and I specifically like getting the 6.5 at a solid number there.
So let's talk about your Washington Capitals. Pretty crushing defeat last night at the hands of the Pittsburgh Penguins, losing 4-1 on home ice. The Caps now, according to my projections, are sitting at 38.3% chance of making the playoffs. They've been leapfrogged by the Detroit Red Wings and the New York Islanders. Detroit has a 47.3% chance. I think they've got a little bit of an easier schedule than the Islanders. Very comparable, but they've got a little bit of a leg up on the Isles there due to a bit of an easier schedule. The Isles have a relatively easy schedule too. They've got a 43.3% chance. Their chances were down around 15% a week ago, so they've really come on lately. The Flyers, like I said, still sitting pretty with a 56% chance of making the playoffs. But let's talk about the Caps. Are they just running out of steam, do you think? Charlie Lindgren even maybe
Yeah,
running out of steam? That's the big thing, right?
that is because last night they played well enough to win, and they
Yeah.
were as due as anyone to lose a game the way that they lost it last night. But I did think they played perfectly fine. Don't love their chances tonight though at all. And
No.
then once
So you don't think we're going to see a 7-6 shootout win again versus the
I'd assume not. And
that was one of the funnest games all season long.
it
That
was.
was one of the games that I had the most fun watching for sure.
Yeah, and Carolina shook the rust off last night. They had a really tough first period defensively versus Boston. I was on
Yeah.
Carolina last night, and credit to the Bruins because they really just squeezed the life out of them after that. But if anything, it really makes me like the Caps' chances a little less tonight too, when you kind of saw them have to lock in and chase the game after that first. So I'm kind of chalking up a loss tonight. We'll see. Maybe it'll go differently, and it's going to come down if they win some of those ones that they're supposed to. Who knows, though? Buffalo slapped them and that's one of the ones they absolutely need to win if you look at the upcoming schedule. So I'm not feeling great.
Yeah, not too much of the rest mismatches to worry about. That's not something we deal with in the playoffs, of course. I mean, unless a team has had an early exit, winning a series early, they're waiting for an opponent. Sometimes in those situations, you might have a rest mismatch in a game one or something like that. But that's it. So the regular season is winding down. We're not going to have too many of these instances, but I do think he brought up a good point there. The Hurricanes, they had 4 days off compared to just one day off for the Bruins, 3 day rest advantage. Normally you'd think, hey, that's a pretty good advantage to have, but 4 days is sort of where the rust starts to come in, and where that can be almost a negative. It can have a negative impact on a team. 2-3 days seems to be the sweet spot. Anything more than that, I think a little bit more uncertainty is kind of baked into to how they're going to play, at least in the start of a game. Um, but yeah, so elsewhere, I guess the other matchup that's going to have a lot of eyes on it on Friday night, the Colorado Avalanche. Of course, they got a big win over the Minnesota Wild this or on Thursday. They won 5-2. They won 5 of their last 6 on the road. That is 5 of 6 since the trade deadline. Coincidentally, I don't think that is a coincidence. They've been playing a lot better since the trade deadline. The Avalanche have the best even strength expected goal percentage in the NHL, according to Evolving Hockey, since the trade deadline. So Casey Middlestat, Sean Walker, they've been great additions to the team. Middlestat has been pretty good offensively. Walker's been chipping in offensively as well. Um, I think we saw these two teams match up against each other on March 16th. And Colorado, I mean, the score was close. It was an overtime victory for the Avs, but the Avalanche dummied the Oilers in that game. Colorado won 3-2. They own 60% of the shot attempts, 62.5% of the expected goals. Obviously, they're going to come into this game a little bit tired after playing on Thursday. But you look at how the I think the perception of these two teams has changed a lot in the last couple of weeks, because Edmonton, they closed as a minus 126 favorite when they hosted the Avalanche back on March 16th. But they're listed at just minus 130 at a lot of sports books here, despite the fact that Colorado is playing the second game of a back-to-back, despite the fact that Valenchushkin is listed as questionable. I don't know if there's been any update there. You'd think Edmonton's money line odds would be longer, if not for these advantages. So I think clearly Edmonton has been, the highest rated team according to the betting market up until recently. Now it's the Hurricanes, but I think by the end of the regular season, you're going to see Dallas and Colorado sort of leapfrog the Oilers in terms of the power ratings in the betting market. So, and I think rightfully so, because you look at how the Avs have been playing, you look at how the Stars have been playing. I think they're really setting themselves apart from a team like the Edmonton Oilers, who have been the worst money line bet of any playoff team since the All-Star break. Only 6 teams have been less profitable. All of those teams are non-playoff teams. If you bet on the Oilers in all of those 29 games since they returned to action, you've gone 16-13 for minus 4.5 units. So not great from a betting, not good at all from a betting perspective. Don't see any reason whatsoever to bet on the Oilers winning this game. That's for sure. How are you handicapping this game, Nick?
Yeah, I actually didn't really have much here. I fully agree that you can't touch the Oilers at this price. But I kind of like the spot for them. I feel like we have seen the worst of it. But with that said, I'm never going to bet them at this number versus the Avs right now. It just felt like one to me that I didn't really want to reach on. And the Oilers
Kind of
have,
like the draw. To be honest,
I
because
actually, and I do know these teams have played extremely close. There's been a
yeah,
lot of draws
last
and a
two
lot of one goal
seasons,
games.
including this one. So the last 7 meetings, 5 of the last 6 or 6 of the last 7. I can't remember exactly. Actually, I'll look it up. I do have a note here. Um, Let me see. Dating back to the start of the 2022-23 regular season, 6 of the last 7 meetings have been decided by one goal. So they're playing each other close. Maybe this rest advantage for the Oilers can help them keep it closer than they might if these two teams were sort of on even footing here. But yeah, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I don't really. I think that was pretty much what I was getting at. But yeah, I agree. I think it is a solid spot to go with the tie if you are going to bet anything on the game.
Yeah, so baseline for that, I'm not going to lock that in. I'm just saying that is the look that I would take probably if I was going to, if I had a super soaker to my head. Um, I know that was really corny, but I didn't want to say the other word. So, um, the price at Pinnacle on the 60-minute tie is plus 334. So I think that should be sort of your reference point if you're shopping around. If you're going to consider betting on a draw here for this one, you probably want odds as good, if not better than that. Elsewhere, you've got some interest in this Kraken versus Ducks game. Probably a game that a lot of people are going to gloss over, but not sports bettors though, right?
Not sports betters. I was pumped to bet on the Ducks in Calgary, and I still think that there's a playable number on them again at plus 146. Whether Mason McTavish plays or not, hopefully he will. They're playing with way more of their roster than they have recently. We saw these teams play a really close game in Seattle just a week ago, and I actually felt good about my Ducks ticket until that game, or until the third, which was a bit of a ref show. I don't know if you saw, Zegers had like a ridiculous dive in the first, and then the refs just absolutely stuck it to the Ducks. I did think that was a big part of the result in that game. And with the way that the Kraken have struggled to score goals for such a long sample, when I look at where the Ducks are with having some of their actual offensive talents back in the mix, Trevor Zegers played really good in Calgary. I think he's kind of going to come on a little bit here. It's been a bit of an embarrassing period, but I do think people are kind of forgetting that he could still be as good as basically anyone in terms of point production in this game. So I think plus 146 is just a little too long. I think the Ducks are going to trend up incrementally the rest of the way, and the Kraken just continue to hold up some market value because of the way that they can defend and the way they can make any game into a coin flip. We saw that versus the Kings, but it also feels like at this point they just can't score. Like we've seen it all year long. This team just doesn't have the offensive upside to finish off many chances.
Yeah,
So I think plus 146 just looks a
Seattle's
little long.
pretty terrible offensively.
Horrible. And I didn't really think they'd fall off this bad. Everyone knew they were a bit of a luck box last year with their finishing rates, and I think some of the pieces they lost might have been a little underrated. But
Yeah, they had the best depth scoring in the league last year, pretty much. And
I can't believe they let Sprong walk. I don't know what team's
yeah,
problem with him is, but I love him ever since he was in Washington. But anyways, yeah, I just thought this looked a little too long when we're talking about a Seattle team that it just continues to prove they can't score goals.
yeah, and you can get plus 150 on the Ducks money line at Pinnacle Sports right now. That
Nice,
is
love it.
the
Yeah,
best price. Yeah, elsewhere, I mean, other than that, not a lot of interest in the Vegas Golden Knights and the Arizona Coyotes. I think that one's mostly priced right. I think the Rangers and the Red Wings are also priced right. I guess the intrigue here comes from the fact that this could be a possible first round matchup that we're watching tonight. If Detroit does squeak into the playoffs, they will likely draw the Rangers if they fall into the second wild card spot. So yeah, I guess that's the only interest I really have in that game, is just kind of seeing how that plays out. If anything, I guess I'm closer to betting on the Rangers at minus 135, but probably no play there. And circling back to the Kraken and the Ducks, my model likes the Kraken. I've been pretty much disregarding any bets on the Kraken the last month or so. And at the same time kind of disregarding any bets against the Ducks, because like you mentioned, they have had a lot of injury troubles. They've been missing different players. Their lineup has sort of been in flux every other game, it seems. And that's hard to kind of figure out what their struggle has. Their struggles been mostly been due to that or other factors, etc. So a lot of uncertainty with how my model, I think, is pricing the Ducks right now, and the Kraken for that matter. So that's a game that I sort of kind of gloss over. But I'm glad that you could share a little insight there, because I didn't have anything. But before we move on to Saturday, let's do a little bit of a schedule breakdown, if you don't mind bringing that up, Jake. Um, we have, like I said, a lot of hockey. 29 games in the NHL, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you've been here before, you know what you're looking at. The rest column tells you how many rest days teams have across the league heading into their games. The load column gives you a little bit more context. Obviously, on Sunday, we're going to have a pile of teams playing back to back after playing on Saturday. And why is that important? Well, rest is a weapon in the NHL, and year to date, it has had quite an impact on home team win percentage. So, when the home team and the road team have had the same amount of days off, there have been 643 of those games this season. The home team has won 53%. The home team win percentage overall this season is 53.6%. So, not far off of what you would expect if two teams are on sort of, an even playing field or a level playing field. But when the home team has more rest, they win 58.88% of the time. When they have less rest, they win 47.8% of the time. So almost a 10 points or 10 percentage points swing there between having more rest and less rest. So it's definitely important. Like I said, there's not going to be we've only got 2 weeks left of regular season hockey left to handicap. So this isn't going to come into play for very much longer, but still very important as we wind down in the regular season with teams, playing out a very long and grueling schedule. But yeah, won't spend a lot of time here. You can take a screenshot now. Actually, I tweeted out a screenshot of this exact schedule breakdown on my Twitter account at Digital Gambler. Nick, where can people follow you at on Twitter? You are muted.
Sorry, I'm at Nick M _ hockey on Twitter, and then I always post the majority of my picks to the Action app.
Cool, cool. Got a big following on the Action app, eh? How many followers you got on there, Nick?
43,000.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I haven't worked to get it going on Twitter as much. Don't really know what to say a lot of the time. Yeah, it's a lot easier to just post a pic on there and people can just think what they want of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Anyway, let's get into Saturday's games. We got a couple of, we got a handful of matinee games actually. We got the Tampa Bay Lightning and Pittsburgh Penguins that gets going at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. The Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins, 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time. The Winnipeg Jets and the Minnesota Wild, 2 p.m. And the Dallas Stars, the Chicago Blackhawks at 2:30. And then we've got a little bit of a later game with the Blues and the Sharks at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. Some great matchups on Saturday. The two games that I'm zeroing in on here are the Nashville Predators. I think they're opening quite short against the New York Islanders. You can bet them at -110 at North Star Bets or Bet Rivers. You can get -105 at DraftKings, though, currently, which I think is a great price. But at -110, -110, I can lock in a 1 unit bet to win 1 unit on the Nashville Predators over the New York Islanders. The Isles, I know they've got a decent expected goals percentage, etc. They grade out pretty well on aggregate, but I think if you look at the game logs, and they had a fairly easy schedule in February, and in March their schedule has gotten a bit tougher. You look at their game logs, I think the Isles are a very mid team. They have the odd really good performance that sort of inflates their overall numbers, and then they go right back to being like a 47% kind of team, kind of getting outplayed. And Nashville has been obviously really good. They've had a couple of bumps in the road lately, but I like them here at -110 or better. Do you have any thoughts on this game, Nick? I know you've got to probably think about the Islanders a lot more than you'd like to, spending all that time with Lieboff.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at this is, first, I do think it's the Preds or pass 100%. Like -105 just looks like a lot of credit for the Islanders. You look at this week, the Hawks game easily could have lost. Pretty lucky to squeak that one out. And then last night they play like a third of the Columbus roster. A lot of the guys who were in the lineup were supposedly sick. Jack Greaves is in the goal. Like, that was pretty much as much of a tap in as you're going to find. So I agree. Like, I don't think they've done anything worth crediting. My thoughts are like the spot scares me a little, and I know that shouldn't always be a thing, but that's kind of the one case for the Islanders here is that, they're at home playing the most important game of the year, but we've also seen them blow up
Yeah.
that that narrative a lot this year. So I'm with you. Like I think you are in a nutshell just getting too good of a number on the Preds to pass.
Fourth game in 6 nights for the Islanders, so they'll be a little bit tired, I
Lethargic.
guess,
And
compared
they're always
to.
like that. Yeah, I do. I think it does. It feels like you just have a number on the Preds. You got to just take and see how it goes. I think it looks short for sure. Oh, you're muted, Andy.
Oh, thank you. Intuitively, when I look at the Preds, I kind of think, this is a game that they've got to perform well in. Their coaching staff, all the way up to Barry Trotz, is probably putting the emphasis on, you got to come into this game and perform well because this is going to be a real playoff atmosphere, right? You've got a team that's fighting for their playoff lives. The Predators aren't, guaranteed a spot. They're looking pretty good, of course, but they're still in the thick of the race. They're still fighting. So I don't think the Preds are going to take their foot off the gas. Hopefully, the pressure will get to the Islanders. The other game that I like on Saturday is the Los Angeles Kings. I think there is a pretty attractive price available on them right now, and I don't think it's going to stick around too long. It could, and, maybe, but based on what we usually see here, um, North Star Bets opening up and Bet Rivers opening up at minus 110 in favor of the Los Angeles Kings. They're hosting the Vancouver Canucks. I don't think Thatcher Demko is going to be back. He is technically, I think, eligible to come back, but based on Rick Tockett's comments a couple of days ago, he's progressing, but I don't think it sounds like he's going to be. They're going to be rushing him back into the crease. So this one has already moved a bit. At North Star Bets because of course this is a copycat industry. If DraftKings open up at minus 125, somebody's going to run, and that didn't originate Dick All. But anyways, so let's see. I got to adjust this because it was a bigger play at minus 110. I think I can still justify a 1 unit bet here at minus 116, which is still the best price in market. Yeah, I'm gonna lock in the LA Kings at minus 116 to win 1 unit, hoping that it's Casey DeSmith or Arthur Silva's, not Thatcher Demko. But the rust factor would be a big one for Demko if he was to come back on Saturday anyway. So I'm not really super worried about it. You don't really like this one though, do you, Nick?
I'm a little off it. It's funny. So I've bet a side in the last 3 games between these teams, and I've lucked every time. I've just bet the team that's been an underdog because the Kings won big in Vancouver. Then Vancouver beat them 2-1 in overtime, and then the Kings won in what was a really close game last week. I kind of viewing this the same way, where I'm just like, I feel like it's going to be really, really close. I'm not necessarily in disagreement, though. I do think the Kings are kind of going to continue to show better. I like where they're at. The one interesting note that I have up on the Canucks is they're really not doing good versus playoff teams dating back to about February. And the one thing that they haven't done versus playoff teams is score. They've been losing, I think it's 15 games in a row. And I'll try to explain this so it's not too complicated. They have either lost or beaten a playoff team without allowing more than 3. So basically, if they beat a playoff team, it's because they won 3-2 or 3-1. And that's just been consistent for 3 months. They aren't really putting up many goals in these games. And it feels like it's just a battle of whether or not they can make it into enough of a coin flip and get some bounces. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a firm lean, but it is. And it's funny because I heard so much at the start of the year about Canucks ragging on the Oil, who still have done this, but Canucks fans giving it to the Oil over them beating up on a soft schedule when they had that run through January. And now the Canucks have been really, really mid versus other good teams for what has become a pretty huge sample. I thought that they would actually give Vegas a run for their money on Tuesday. I was completely wrong as they got just pumped. So Yeah, I don't know. I think when you talk about the Preds game and maybe a little bit of the meaning, I think one of the underrated things is you probably want to get in that wild card one. I think in the West is probably going to offer a pretty good edge over the team that gets Dallas or
Oh yeah.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
you definitely want to finish there. So hopefully the Preds have that in mind as well.
Yeah, I think for my money, Dallas is the most complete team right now. I think you've got to love if you've got Stars futures like I have been holding them all season long. Stars Cup futures, that is, and division futures, which are looking pretty good right now. Um, I had the Stars as the better team in the Central Division at the start of the season. I thought it was going to be close, but I had Dallas edging out Colorado. That looks like it's going to happen. I think it's very close. I think these teams are very closely matched. But I think you've really got to like what you're seeing out of Jake Ottinger recently, right? It's super important to have him in top form heading into the playoffs. He struggled this year. Now he's saved, I think, 7.4 goals above expected in his last 6 starts. That's pretty good. He had a great performance against Edmonton, shutting them out 5-0 the other night. Yeah, I think, with his ceiling, there are better goaltenders maybe in the Western Conference in the playoff picture. Connor Hellebuck may be better. Thatcher Demko may be better. UC Saros might even be better on his best day. I don't know. But I think, the ceiling is so high for Ottinger. We've seen what he can do. We saw him do it against Calgary that year. If he can get to that level, the Stars would be pretty hard to stop.
Yeah, I fully agree. That was one of the reasons I liked them in the middle of the season as well. And yeah, they just look absolutely stacked. And Maverick Bork's going to come up and play. I don't think he'll be in their playoff roster when they're healthy, but he's really good too. I don't know if he'll be quite like a Stankoven impact, but I think it's going to be another one of these things where we're talking about like a potential impact player added from within. So everything's definitely looking pretty good for the Stars right now.
I think with just looking at the play, like Edmonton could skate by. They could get it. Obviously, maybe draw LA in the first round or something like that. They could probably get by them, and then maybe they get Vancouver or someone in the second round and get by them. I think you're really going to see that separation and why it's so important to have as many defensemen as teams like the Avalanche and the Golden Knights and the Stars have when they get into a series against the Oilers, who are going to have to win in spite of Darnell Nurse. Did you see that pick on Wednesday in Dallas that led to the 4-on-1
Yeah.
for the Stars?
Yeah.
That was so bad.
They're in tough. They got some minutes to hide. I think the one thing to like for the Oilers is that they will actually increase the usage from McDavid and Draisaitl when we get into the playoffs, right? Like that's actually something that works in their favor. Everybody talks about how much the depth matters, but if your stars aren't going and this year they've actually not needed to lean on those 2 to steal games as much. So yeah, but it is looking a little more concerning for the Oil for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing that concerns me, and this is the case for Colorado as well, although, like I said, they have been playing a lot better on the road recently, and they've been turning it around in that regard. But the home and road splits are pretty significant for the Oilers, and you go from a team that's outscoring on average, they're outscoring the opposition at home by about 1.5 goals per game. On the road, they've got a negative goal differential on a per game basis, and I think that kind of illustrates just them getting exploited when they aren't at home, when they aren't able to get the ideal matchups, etc. When they've got to put Darnell Nurse out in situations that he probably shouldn't be out in. That's gonna come into play in the playoffs, and there might be, it might be pretty hard to handicap that from, with a venue change, things like that. It might take a while to kind of figure out. So a little bit wary of the Oilers heading into the playoffs for sure. So when you look at Saturday's slate, aside from the Kings and the Preds games that I brought up, is there anything else that's sticking out to you?
No, I think that's all of it. I actually am liking surprisingly little. The one thing I'm close on, I think the Flames are interesting. I'm kind of seeing where that number goes. If you can get better than plus 140, I think I'd just do it. As much as I've been low on the Flames recently, I still think when Markstrom's in goal, they're like a big part of it has been the amount of Wolf starts. Their defensive play has tailed off a little bit too. But this is also one of those
naturally.
things. Yeah, exactly.
you,
And
you lose you lose you lose the personnel that they did on the blue line, and that's it's
a whole
bound to
second
happen.
pairing that was like the best
Yeah.
second pairing in the league. So it makes sense, but I do think what's left is capable of a bit of a bounce back. I like the spot catching the Oilers after their game tonight, and this is obviously like a Super Bowl for the Flames. So who knows? Maybe that's a bit of a reach, but that's kind of the one angle. At least I'd say pass on the Oil here. It doesn't feel like a good time to play them as a huge favorite with the kind of signs of weakness they've been showing lately.
The one thing I do want to mention, just because I'm seeing it now, I'm showing a huge edge on the opening odds for the Dallas Stars, who are who are on the road in Chicago on Saturday. But uh, that that projection assumes that Ottinger would be in goal. I just wanted to kind of just kind of go with that, just to show like here's the height of where I think the Stars should be priced in a game against the Chicago Blackhawks, but they're playing the Avalanche on Sunday in the second half of a back-to-back, so Ottinger could very well be getting that start. I do, though, think there's something to be said about coaches maybe kind of weighing, do we want to show Ottinger to the Avalanche right now? Like he's had so much good things go or so much good happening for him lately that do you want to feed him to the Avalanche, even though it is going to be a game where they're kind of on short rest too. But after the last game against Colorado, where Dallas really got smoked, they were on the second half of back to back. It was their sixth game in 9 nights, so you could see a bit of a repeat on Sunday with Dallas in that situation again, and it might be better for Ottinger's confidence to kind of keep him away from the Avs with so little time left in the regular season. But we'll see how Pete DeBoer decides to play it. But I did just want to mention that projection assumes that Ottinger, not Scott Wedgwood, will be in goal. Other than that, that pretty much does it. Those are the two bets that I like: the Nashville Predators to win 1 unit at -110 or better, the LA Kings to win 1 unit at -116 or better. And I'll be looking out for any other bets that come along, and I'll tweet about those on Twitter and let you guys know. Truthfully, I don't know how you feel about this, Nick, but I mean, we heard head coach Paul Maurice talk about it with his Florida Panthers just a couple of days ago. I think it was following their game in Montreal or prior to their game in Montreal, one or the other. No, it was following the game in Montreal. Obviously, Florida responded with a 6-0 defeat over the Ottawa Senators on the road on Thursday, showing that they're not dead. But I thought Maurice's comments were kind of interesting because the reporters brought up the struggles. The Panthers were 2-8 in their last 10 games heading into that game versus the Senators. And Maurice was asked about their struggles, and he said, I know why they're playing this way, basically alluding to the fact that, look, it's the end of the season. We don't care about winning the Atlantic Division. We're probably not going to win the Atlantic Division. There's no change here. We don't care where we finish. We did it last year. We went all the way from 8th place to the Stanley Cup final, etc. And I think that's probably going to come into play across the league. So that kind of always makes me weary at this time of the year. With some of the good teams, some of the teams that are out of it, etc. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what their interest level is going to be in these last couple of weeks of the regular season, and I really start to kind of pull back and not want to risk as much. Over the last week, I felt like I've been giving away a lot of the good work that I did this season because making some bad bets that maybe I wouldn't have made a couple of months ago, but kind of getting baited into some things based on the odds, etc. So yeah, I really like to kind of pull back at this time in the season and just wait for the playoffs. But definitely like those two plays on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've had a worse week too, and I do think that is more of a factor. And yeah, the one you can look at last year, if you remember, I got sold on this too, on the Jets in round one over Vegas. Vegas trended into the playoffs in pretty bad form
And
analytically,
then the
and
Jets played maybe the best playoff game I've ever watched.
game
They were
one,
so dominant. They were
yeah,
they
and
were
then
they
everyone
were beyond
we all thought
dominant.
we were gonna win. and then
Oh,
didn't even win
yeah.
another game.
Yeah, and
So
I
I
had the Jets
do
in that
point to that.
series too.
I think like a ton of people did. They became really trendy ahead of that series. I think everyone was looking the way Vegas had been playing,
They owned
and
like
then
70% of the expected goals in that game. They were so dominant. I was talking to my dad about that the other day about how, you know, I think a team like Florida has to watch it with that attitude of, oh, we're just going to kind of, you know, waltz our way into the playoffs. I think you want to come into the playoffs, at least the last couple of games. I think you want to come in with good habits and stuff like that because
for sure.
things can spiral out of control fast. Vegas could have easily found themselves down 2-0 if they didn't get it together in game 2, right? So, yeah,
Yeah, no,
the
and I
world would be a
agree.
better
Like,
place if that had happened.
yeah, I'm not just saying you can snap into form. I just mean when you see this kind of a lull, I'm like, yeah, it happens. And the teams that it
Oh, for
hasn't
sure.
happened to that are
I
winning the
agree.
President's Trophy, then it seems to happen when they get in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not worried about the Panthers for sure.
All right. Well, that pretty much does it for this week on the Puck Portfolio. Thanks for joining the show. Drop a like on the video if you have not already. Of course, subscribe to the Canada Sports Betting YouTube channel. We are going to be switching gears here over the next week or two. Obviously, as we head into the playoffs. One thing that I want to try to do next week is teach you all how to simulate a best of 7 series. So I'm going to work on that this weekend. Hopefully, put something together and put a video out. That'll be, I think, the first kind of playoff content that I release heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs, because I know everybody, wants to know how to estimate the winner of not only the winner of a best of 7 series, but find out, what the exact series length will be, how likely will the team win in 4, 5, 6, 7 games, etc. We'll cover all that next week on the show and make you all a little bit smarter as a result. But yeah, thanks for joining the show, Nick. Thanks for all your insight and taking the time to join the show again this week.
For sure. Thanks for having me again.
All right, good luck with your bets this weekend. We'll see you on Monday.